Alright everyone, anytime that I get a chance to criticize NIMBYists, I'm going to take it. And here's a little clip from Bill Gates actually talking about environmentalism. Yeah, there's some NIMBYism there. He's a moron, basically. But he's not 100% wrong, actually. If you believe in anthropogenic climate change, that is the concept that the world is going to become Tatooine because people drive cars or something like that, he's fundamentally correct. Planting trees wouldn't solve the problem. They wouldn't be able to absorb enough carbon effectively to offset the use of fossil fuel, if you believed in that. I happen to believe that climate change is real. I don't see it as a threat. I see it as actually a good thing. I think that the fact that we're pumping more CO2 in the atmosphere is going to make plants grow faster. It's going to help agriculture. It's actually helpful. And that we've actually got a fairly scarcity of CO2 right now, and we have for many, many centuries. Effectively, the plants in the world sucked up all that CO2, and now we need to pump the atmosphere with more of it, because that's actually a good thing. Here's the problem. Planting trees alone will not solve that particular issue. In fact, the trees are planting themselves. Vast swaths of the earth are reforesting right now, especially in Europe and the United States, and Canada, North America basically, because people are using less wood. They don't have as much usefulness wood doesn't have as much usefulness as it did maybe 200 years ago when you had to make your wagon, you had to build a home. Nobody's really, yeah, homes are going up. You've got a housing shortage in certain parts of the world, but in other parts of the world the population is declining. And keep in mind, in certain parts of the world, wood isn't really used in housing structures anyway. Those happen, by the way, to be the places where most of the population growth is happening. So you've got less usefulness for that. You don't make covered wagons anymore. You don't have as many houses going up. People don't typically burn wood for a fuel source, and so things are being reforested in the first world. If we advanced the rest of the world, we would see even less wood usage, by the way. That's number one. Number two, it's fundamentally correct because there's another usefulness for wood that would tackle the problem, so-called, of CO2 in the atmosphere that nobody wants to talk about. Everyone wants to talk about putting scrubbers up on the side of skyscrapers, absorbing CO2, liquefying it, and then pumping it into the ground or something like that to create reservoirs of liquefied CO2. That's completely stupid. It makes absolutely no sense. And by the way, it'll leak back out into the atmosphere anyway, so, you're a retard. What you should be doing is making biochar. That's all you have to do. You don't need to plant trees, you need to burn trees. That's the irony. The trees will plant themselves. Take them down, take the old brush and larger lumber that, isn't really as productive ecologically, and carbonize it. You can do this with electricity, by the way, so, Bill Gates should get in on it. He should invest in it. And then you put that into the ground. What do? You grow bigger crops. It just helps even more. You end up with a little bit of a wafting CO2 vapor off of it anyway as it slowly degrades, and it helps with the soil structure and everything else. Most of the soil in the world, it's used for growing things, because of the use of nitrogen fertilizers especially, is carbon poor. It's unbalanced. The ionic transfer that's involved with the plants themselves, their root systems, is deficient. Well, you can grow bigger crops real easy. I've used biochar. I've got probably 500 pounds of charcoal sitting in the backyard waiting to be charged and then deployed in the fall. For a reason. It works. I've tested it. I've experimented on it myself. A biochar addition to, for example, a seed starter versus one that doesn't have it. The biochar does work better. You're getting, probably a 15-20% boost in growth minimum. It might even be more than that. If you put it in your garden, it'll last for half of forever. The biochar that I pump into the garden this fall will probably be there when I die. Well, that's a lot of carbon that's been sequestered. Some of it will end up, getting, finely powdered, and eventually it'll be, evaporate into the background, and you'll get CO2, but you can sequester it for a long-ass time, even with mechanical farming. I think in studies it was like 20 years or something like that. That's with mechanical farming. Well, that restores your carbon balance. You only have to add it every 15th year or thereabouts and slowly build the soil. Do that. Bill Gates is a NIMBY moron. He doesn't want to plant trees. He thinks that environmentalism is carbon taxes and bullshit like that. There is a very, very simple solution if you genuinely believe in anthropogenic climate change, and you believe that it's actually a problem. If you believe that, make charcoal. The ancients were doing that. There's an area in the Amazon rainforest, for example, where more archaeological studies are showing there was quite an advanced culture there, actually. They took charcoal, and it's not quite clear whether they made it on purpose or it was just incidental. It's an area the size of England, in the middle of the Amazon rainforest. Nobody even knew that this culture existed until, I think, the 1970s or something like that, of improved soil. Feet deep. They mine it out even to this day, and they sell it in bagged form to other people. I mean, you can make it yourself. It's not that difficult. You take charcoal, you charge it with nitrogen to balance it, because otherwise you're leaching the soil, and then you put it in the garden. That's all you have to do. It's really not that difficult. I've got a pile of charcoal. I had too much for the boxes that I had at the time to store them. And so I just dumped it in that wooden bin out and back in the garden. And I mean, look at the size of those catnip plants. They're much greener. They're much larger. They're doing very, very well. It breaks apart the soil. It feeds earthworms. They love it, which means you get worm castings too. It balances the soil pH. It restores the carbon balance. It's perfect. It's literally perfect. All we have to do is get people to do like backyard gardens and shit like that and give them a bunch of charcoal. We can take care of the problem. You don't need to plant any trees. You need to slash the trees down and burn them, ironically. You just got to do it the right way. Now, Bill Gates is still a moron, though, because that's not what he's proposing. What he's proposing is pay more money. Give me money and give the government money, and magically we won't become Tatooine. Everything will be perfectly hunky-dory. That's NIMBYism. I don't want to go through the effort of picking up trash. I want to pay somebody else to do it. I don't want to go through the effort of planting trees. I'll pay somebody else to do it. I don't want to have to make fucking charcoal. Maybe I'll invest in that business. Somebody needs to let him know about biochar. Apparently he's completely ignorant about the concept. If he knew about it, then he'd probably endorse it. You know, he could probably make money off of it. Well, here's my charcoaling company. You know, we'll supply it to local farmers. Doesn't he have like a million acres of farmland or something like that? Well, use biochar. Set a good example for other people. The world will be just fine, don't worry. If mankind is depleted off of the planet will never be better off. That's about all. Peace out.